You sat through years of history class learning that wars began over grand, serious things like territories and treaties and the delicate balance of European power. Somewhere in your head, there's probably a mental image of a hardened general hunched over maps, making cold, calculated decisions about the fate of nations. That image, dear viewer, is a lie, or at least a heavily edited version of the truth, because real wars have been fought over crap as petty as a soccer match, a single hungry pig, and a severed human ear in a jar. In one glorious case, a modern military declared war on a species of bird and then lost to it. Somewhere in the official records of the Australian government, there is a report in which a major of the Royal Australian Artillery explains, in former military language, that he was outmaneuvered by emus. Each of these wars is completely real, each one is dumber than whatever you're imagining, and each one hides the same uncomfortable secret about every war you were taught to take seriously. So what does it actually take to start a war? And why do the official explanations never mention the pig or the emus? Well, there's a mechanism underneath all of this that I'm going to call the dignity rewrite, which is the process by which every war gets assigned a respectable cause after the fact, so that nobody has to admit what actually lit the fuse. Today, we're looking at the wars where the rewrite failed, the ones so absurd that history never managed to dress them up. By the end, you'll see why they might be the most ridiculous wars ever fought, but at the same time, maybe the most honest wars ever fought. We started in the summer of 1969, when El Salvador and Honduras were scheduled to play each other in qualifying matches for the 1970 World Cup. The first game happened in Honduras. The home team won, and riots broke out. The second game happened in El Salvador, where the visiting Honduran team was treated to a lovely evening of fans screaming outside their hotel all night, and after El Salvador won that one, the rioting got worse. Fans attacked each other and things across the border began escalating in a direction that soccer generally isn't supposed to escalate to. Within weeks, El Salvador severed diplomatic ties, and on the 14th of July 1969, the Salvadorian army launched an actual invasion of Honduras, with airstrikes using warplanes so outdated that this conflict became the last time piston engine fighters from World War II dogfought each other anywhere on Earth. The whole thing lasted roughly 100 hours, which is why historians call it the 100 Hours War. And by the time that the Organization of American States pried the two countries apart, around 3,000 people were dead. Except, and this is where the dignity rewrite starts working in reverse, the soccer was never really the cause, it was the excuse. For years, hundreds of thousands of Salvadoran migrants had been living and farming in Honduras. And when Honduras passed a land reform law that stripped land from those migrants and started expelling them, the two countries were already a powder keg wearing a jersey. The match rights just handed everyone a starting gun, which means the one war famous for having the dumbest cause in modern history actually had a fairly standard cause. And the truly dumb part about it is that a sporting event was all it took to set it off. Now hold on to that thought because it's the key to this entire video. Quick thing though before the part about the pig shows up, this channel is brand new, so if you're the kind of person who enjoys these kinds of videos, maybe you'll enjoy my other ones, so please check those out. And if you're enjoying this one, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It's basically free and it genuinely helps this channel grow because I'm not even getting paid for this. I haven't reached that point yet, so let's try to aim for 1,000 subscribers. Okay, the pig. Let's travel back to 1859 to a soggy little island between Washington State and Vancouver Island, where the United States and the British Empire nearly went to war over a single pig. And I need you to understand that I am not exaggerating the pig's role, okay? Both countries claimed San Juan Island thanks to a badly written treaty, so American settlers and British subjects lived there together in an awkward roommate-type situation, right up until American farmer named Lyman Cutlar. I hope I'm saying that name right. Lyman Cutlar woke up one day and found a large black pig owned by the British-run Hudson's Bay Company, eating the potatoes in his garden. Cutler shot the pig. He then offered $10 for it, but the pig's owner demanded $100. And when British authorities threatened to arrest Cutler, the Americans responded by calling in the army. What followed is one of the most magnificent overreactions in the history of overreactions, because within weeks the standoff had snowballed into hundreds of American soldiers dug in with cannons staring down 5 British warships carrying over 2,000 men, all anchored around an island whose only confirmed casualty so far was a pig that was hungry for potatoes. The governor of British Columbia ordered his forces to land, and the Marines were ready to evict the Americans, but the British commander on scene, Rear Admiral Robert Baines, refused, on the grounds that he was not going to plunge 2 great nations into war over a squabble about a pig, which might be the single most sane and reasonable sentence that any military officer has ever said. Washington and London eventually noticed what their colonies were up to and sent negotiators. They settled into a joint occupation of the island that lasted 12 years until the dispute was finally handed to Kaiser Wilhelm I of Germany, of all people, who arbitrated it in 1872 and gave the island to the Americans. Total body count of the war, just 1 pig. It remains pound for pound the most successful war ever fought.
We could go bang for bang. What I know for the Maybach truck. Double R with the factory rims.
But at least a pig war was humans threatening other humans. In 1932, Australia found an opponent it genuinely could not beat. After World War I, the Australian government had settled thousands of veterans on marginal farmland in Western Australia. The Great Depression cratered wheat prices, and then, as of on cue, roughly 20,000 emus migrated directly into the wheat fields and started eating everything. The farmers, being ex-soldiers, requested the one solution they knew worked on large groups of enemies, and the government, incredibly, said yes. They dispatched Major G.P.W. Meredith of the Royal Australian Artillery with 2 soldiers, 2 Lewis machine guns, and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. The insane thing about it is that they also sent a film crew, as if nothing could go wrong, and they would just document an easy victory. Ha! The evil hardened enemy, also known as the emus, did not cooperate with the plan. At the first engagement, the birds scattered into small groups before the guns could do real damage, and at the second engagement, Meredith set a perfect ambush beside a dam as 1,000 emus strolled toward him. He opened fire, killed about 12, and then watched his machine gun jam while the rest of the flock sprinted away at nearly 50 kilometers an hour. The soldiers even bolted a gun to a truck, only to discover the truck couldn't catch a single bird and the ride was way too bumpy to properly aim. After 6 days, roughly 2,500 rounds had produced only around 50 dead emus. The newspapers were openly laughing. Members of parliament joked about awarding the emus medals, and the government pulled the troops out. Meredith's final report claimed 986 confirmed kills using 9,860 rounds. And if you notice that his kill count is exactly 10% of his ammunition, so did historians, who considered that number suspiciously tidy for a man explaining why the birds beat him. He also wrote in an official military document that emus could face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks. The emus kept eating the wheat, the government never sent the army after them again, and today, the bird that defeated a national military appears proudly on Australia's coat of arms. And now let's talk about the honorable mentions. Because in 1896, Britain fought Zanzibar in the shortest war ever recorded. A conflict that started when a sultan Britain didn't approve of seized the throne and ended roughly 38 to 45 minutes later, meaning entire wars have been fought in less time than it takes to watch an entire episode of Survivor.
Do you like me at all?
In 1739, Britain went to war with Spain, partly because a captain named Robert Jenkins had his ear cut off by the Spanish Coast Guards and reportedly displayed the preserved ear to Parliament, which is why history books genuinely call it the War of Jenkins' Ear. And for 50 years, Canada and Denmark waged the so-called Whiskey War over a barren rock called Hans Island, a conflict fought entirely by each side landing, planting a flag, and leaving a bottle of liquor for the other side to find. Aww. Until they finally signed a border agreement in 2022 and split the rock down the middle. Which brings us back to the dignity rewrite, and the part that's actually about you. These wars feel like freaks of history, the embarrassing exceptions to a serious rule. But flip it around for a second. The football war had land disputes underneath soccer, and plenty of serious wars had something like a soccer match underneath the land disputes. a personal insult, a dead pig, a wounded ego, one idiot with a gun, and a bad morning. World War I is taught as a tragedy of alliances and empires, and it detonated because a 19-year-old with a pistol happened to be standing on the right street corner when an Archduke's driver took a wrong turn. The absurd wars and the serious wars are built from the same parts. The only difference is which one's got a good enough rewrite afterward. So the wars in this video aren't history's bloopers at all. They're the outtakes where you can still see the wires. Every war looks like destiny in a textbook, and like a dead pig in a garden while it's still happening. Anyway, so that's it for today. If you happen to make it this far, I thank you so much. Please like, please comment, and please subscribe. Which war surprised you the most? I'd love to hear all about it, so leave it down in the comments, and have a great day.